Call to order the Dickinson City Commission meeting for April 6th, 2021. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. Commissioner Frederick is joining us by VTC. First item up is the order of business. Mr. Winningham, are there any changes to the order of business?
Good evening, Mr. President and Commissioners. There's one change to the order of business. Item 9B, Sunrise Youth Bureau. We are scratching that for this evening, and we will reschedule for the public hearing and public comments. And that is the only change.
Okay, any questions on the changes to the order of business? Not, I'd look for a motion on the order of business.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Soboluk.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion or questions, all in favor of the changes to the order of business, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'm in favor. I don't know if you get approved or not.
Okay, got it.
Can you hear me?
We can. Next item up is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that commissioners wish to discuss with staff? We have minutes, payable accounts, Commerce Bank, checkbook, and approval of gaming site authorizations for St. Anthony Club, Dickinson Charities, and American Legion, Matthew Brew, Post 3. There are no questions on the consent agenda. I'd look for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Walla.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Soboluk. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mrs. Soboluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Got a little bit of a delay there with Jason, so. First item up is our administration and finance, and the first item is library expansion funding, and that'll be handled by Deputy City Administrator Carlson.
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. Before you is a resolution that will confirm the intention of the Commission for the funding of the expansion of the library. Through many discussions in work sessions and budget sessions, it has been the intent to use the $3 million that was originally set aside for the TR library, and then that comes out of the 30% of the 1%. So tonight we are looking for the city's commitment as a formal with the resolutions. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to help answer.
Any questions for Mrs. Carlson on this resolution? And this should be
08208.
Yep, 0820-2021.
I'll move to approve resolution 08-2021.
We have a motion to approve Resolution 08-2021 by Commissioner Walla.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mrs. Soboluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item up is GT Architecture Task Order for the new City Hall, and that'll be handled by City Administrator Winningham.
President Decker and Commissioners, what's before you is an amendment to the professional service agreement for GT Architecture in relation to our City Hall design. What we're asking is to increase their compensation so that they can move forward with this amendment to do architectural and engineering construction documents in order for us to prepare for the bid process, which we expect to be on or near 6 May. So our timeline is very tight, and this will allow us to move forward with those construction documents. The compensation will be increased to the amount of $139,925 for those additional services, and we ask for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Winningham. Any questions for Mr. Winningham on this document? There are no questions. I'd look for a motion on this amendment to the professional services agreement.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Soboluk.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Walla. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Soboluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next item up is the 2021 wage scale adoption. This will be handled by City Administrator Winningham.
And President Decker and Commissioners, well, before you here is a resolution. This resolution is pursuant to our annual Dickinson City Budget Ordinance, which essentially allows us to, from time to time, make changes for certain city compensation. What we've looked at is what was previously brought forward is a briefing for the wage study that the commission had asked for last year. That wage study was completed. We then conducted staff work in relation to the market study and what our current employees are paid, and essentially to do no harm to employees, to lower any pay raises, but to adopt a scale that included the previously authorized 4% increase last year. We have completed that general scale, and what's before you is 4 items within that resolution, which is the market-based general government wage scale, the market-based police government wage scale, the market-based fire government wage scale, and then at the end, the general classification for each one of those positions in relation to where they are on the general scale. We asked this resolution to be passed. It would be effective 1 January for the budget year of this year. So it is retro to 1 January. The numbers that were provided to you in the Excel spreadsheet shows what the city bill would be in order to adopt this scale to correct our wage scale and for the future.
And if we did not make it retro, say we made it, if we figured, say we made it May 1, the impact.
May 1, rough order of magnitude would go from essentially $223,000 roughly. It would reduce that by those 5 whole months. So I'd have to just do public math, and I would say it'd be close to about $180,000. And we can provide that number for the record.
Are there any other questions on the wage scale adoption? Commissioner Frederick?
I don't have any questions. Are we gonna backdate everybody then? We got to go back to January 1?
The original amount of $223,000 was the whole impact for the budget year. So that included back pay for those that are active employees as of this date. that also are employees back to 1 January. So the answer is yes, we would back pay. That is the option. I'm not asking for that in the resolution, but that is the expectation of the city's impact, would retro pay back to 1 January for that full amount that's in those Excel spreadsheets that were previously provided.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Winningham or staff?
I have one. With back pay, is that common in a government entity that once you change somebody, you back pay to the beginning of the fiscal period, or just move forth with it at the new rate?
So I don't know if I'd answer if it's common, but it is a practice that's authorized to essentially, in a budget year which we are currently in, to make this amendment based on our ordinance. So from time to time, we can come forward and ask for more, ask for less, but it allows us to do that. I can't speak to if it's common across other municipalities, but I'm sure we're authorized to do it, and it would make more sense to go back to 1 January to make the journal entry into our budget year to where it's a full budget. But you can always start at any point whenever it's adopted.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Alderman?
I would move to approve resolution number, next number, what's the number?
09.
9, 2021.
We have a motion by Commissioner Oderman to approve 09-2021. Are we going to make the caveat on there that it is retroactive? to-
Yep.
Okay.
You can add,
So
you
that
can amend my motion to include
motion
that.
is amended to make it retroactive to 1 January 2021.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Sobeluk. Any further discussion, questions, comments?
I would just say that it's been a long trip, and this is a step in the right direction, I think, so. Thank you to everybody that had a hand in putting this together.
Just delaying a little bit myself here to Commissioner Frederick catch up.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how much it is. I'm figuring about 4 seconds, so all the time. No further questions, Commissioner Frederick?
Oh, I have nothing else.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve retroactive to January 1 of 2021 by Commissioner Oderman, second by Commissioner Sobeluk. There are no further questions or comments, so we will vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Move on to our next item. We have some reports, and this will be handled by City Administrator Winningham.
President Decker and Commissioners, one of the report items is a job description that we would provide information to the Commission regarding a change in a previously identified position, collapsing a position into what we are calling the Environmental Compliance Coordinator under Public Works. In that position, this one entity would be responsible for all of the city's environmental compliance protocols, and we have determined that position would be best suited as an environmental compliance specialist. And after adopting this new grade, this position has some work to do. It was previously under our former classification, which had been grade 9, which would move it to now currently in the grade 18 or 19, depending on how it falls out by the number. In that position, under Public Works, they would primarily work under the Public Works Director, but they would also direct and implement all environmental compliance protocols and programs that the city would then adopt so that we maintain compliance with any external federal or state laws. And if there's no questions, I'll pause.
Are there any questions for Mr. Winningham or Mr. Zuroff on this position? This is a report, so we're not approving it tonight.
Correct.
Just information. So if you have questions at this time, please do ask them. This would be a direct report to Mr. Zuroff.
Yes, to Public Works Director, Mr. Zuroff.
Reading in it, it kind of hits everybody within your department.
Right.
And then a little bit outside too.
Yes, correct, President
Okay.
Decker. This position will manage a lot of the environmental programs, some that we have current, some that are we are expected to implement in 2 years, like the industrial pretreatment program that the state's going to require us to have by 2023, I believe. Also the MS4 program, recycling program, all the compliance and education and outreach that will really benefit our department.
Would the forester have any, I noticed tonight also we have a special district for removal of diseased trees. Is this something that falls under environmental too, or not
No.
generally? The forester wouldn't have to report to this person? Okay.
Not yet.
Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions or comments on that position, I guess what are we looking at? Maybe next meeting, early May, bringing it for approval?
Mr. President, since we did not have a designated work session this month, you may see it in the May work session,
Okay.
because there's a few things that we have to, I would say, correct on the job descriptions, but we didn't have a formal process necessarily to do this in terms of job descriptions to the commission, but I think it's best to at least bring them forward for the commission's awareness, so that if this position is funded during the budget year, it's slightly out of sequence, but you would see this in the budget year. I'd rather the commission see it sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you. Next item up is a report on the Main Street Initiative, the PIP grant.
And President Decker and Commissioners, what I would like to do is just extend a thanks to Deputy City Administrator Carlson and to our Planning Director Walter Hadley for receiving this grant from the state of North Dakota that essentially allows us to use some funding, about $23,400 funding that would go directly to update our city's comprehensive plan, a portion of it, so that we can direct it towards the governor's, one of the governor's 5 initiatives, which is, it's listed within this Main Street 2021 initiative, and that's why we received this grant. And we look forward to bringing a further report that will define how we are implementing this with the comprehensive plan that the city is reviewing at this time.
Right. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All I'll say is I think it's good practice, because I think you guys are going to be writing a few more coming up. So, good little template. Sharpen your pencils on. So, there's a lot of money out there. And the last item, we have some thank you notes.
There was a thank you letter that was written from the Best Friends Mentoring Program. This organization receives some grant funding from the City of Dickinson, and this letter was from Angie M. Rabbit, who is the new executive director, essentially writing this letter to thank the commission and our budget committee, our grant agency, our advisory committee that provided this grant, and I'm sure that they're going to apply again, and we will review just as we do every year for these programs. And I just wanted to provide that thank you publicly to the commission, and they sent a picture with signed by some of the children that are helped with that mentoring program.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments before we move on for Mr. Winningham? We'll move into public safety. The first item up, we have a monthly report by the fire department.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President and members of the commission. Tonight I'm presenting the March monthly report for the fire department. Whoops. Oh, man. So for the month of March, the fire department responded to 55 calls for service, which is putting us at about 202 calls for the year, which is approximately about a 26% increase from 2020. Our call types for the month of March, EMS kind of led the pack, right, and not far behind it was responses to alarm activations or false calls. Our calls were broken down between the two stations. Our dividing line is the freeway between Station 1, which is south of the freeway, and Station 2, north of the freeway, which the majority happen north or south of the freeway. Our response times for calls south of the freeway were about 6 minutes, a little bit over what the benchmark is, and then for calls north, we're about 7.5 minutes. So there was a slight delay responding from Station 1 to the north side of town. Calls by day of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday are kind of our busy days, but for the most part, they're spread across that. And the majority of our calls happen between 7 and 7. So 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. is about 75% of our calls. And then we completed around 600 hours of training for the month of March, which is approximately 25 to 26 hours per member, which we're required to get 16 hours for each member on the department per month per ISO to maintain our Class 3 rating. So we're exceeding that, and I would gladly answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Presnell. Any questions?
This will probably be on next month's report, but just to give us a little teaser, how much help have you guys been providing to area fire departments in the last week or so?
We started Friday off south of town, helping the rural department, and then they called us again on Saturday. It's been a busy April so far. We've already had 21 calls as of yesterday, so we're averaging about 4.5 to 5 calls a day.
Volunteers, how are our volunteer numbers, and have they, are we taxing them a little bit?
Yeah, they're getting taxed a little bit, but I mean, responding to fires is kind of
Right.
why they joined, so they're happy.
No, and over the weekend, I heard some anecdotal reports regarding people having, because it's nice out, you know, and it's early this year for it to be nice out. People having like bonfires and stuff in their backyard. What are we doing to address that? I mean, maybe that's a question for Chief Dossinger and yourself, but.
We're starting a big Facebook push to kind of make sure that the public's informed, but right now there currently is a burn ban in Stark County, which obviously includes the city of Dickinson. So we're really trying to get the information out there. We have responded to a lot of backyard fires, people cleaning up their yards, burning leaves and stuff, which is prohibited.
Commissioner Oderman, Chief Presnell touched on it. We're definitely doing an educational process on our Facebook page, Twitter, and other social media sources. If they have an open burn or utilizing fireworks, obviously the police department has taken a zero tolerance at this time because of the burn ban and utilization of charcoal grilling material or having an open burn in their backyards. It is a B misdemeanor because of the burn ban at this time.
And I guess my only other comment, you know, the Heroes Ball went down really well. Kudos to both departments. Interacting with some of the law enforcement and our fire protective personnel. I think as commissioners, we're gonna have to, if this continues, especially in the fire department, we're equipped for fighting in the city. We're not real equipped. And if we're gonna offer assistance, there's probably a few things that we need to do to enhance or help some of our firefighters. Their turnout gear, your turnout gear that they're running around out on the prairie with is not wildfire gear. But I don't know, I mean, that's something that, you know, Chief, if you guys see a need, you know, make sure that we see it in the budget season, if there's something. If this is gonna continue all summer, we're going to definitely tax some of that other equipment, so.
That's correct, President Decker. Our station uniforms that we wear, our pants are actually compliant to fight the grass fires and stuff like that. We just lack the shirts and some of the lighter helmets and stuff to get out there because you're moving so fast. It's, you know, fighting grass fires is a lot different than fighting a structure fire, which is what we're more set up for. And we only have one apparatus or one fire truck that actually is set up to fight grass fires. It's able to drive and pump at the same time, whereas the rest of our structural apparatus, once they're parked and you get the pump in, they're stationary and do not move.
I know that one on the south side Friday, there was some people really scrambling right on the other side of 22. Yeah, they didn't know if they were going to get it stopped in time. I was down there talking to them, and they were very thankful that both rural and us showed up and put that out. So,
And I think that was the reason I asked the question about the backyard fires and things like that, because it's so imperative that we don't do anything stupid right now. And setting stuff on fire anywhere right now, throwing a cigarette out of a car window, that could set a blaze that is going to burn for thousands and thousands of acres. And if it's near town, all of a sudden you're looking at, I mean, I don't even want to think about or imagine the amount of property damage if a fire got out of control someplace in town right now because of how dry it is.
well, look what happened up in Williston. It hit that thistle pile, and they lost the fire truck.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't get out of the way. I mean, it went that fast. When it hit that pile of thistles, that was like a blast furnace, and they ended up losing that truck. And I don't know what the cause was up in Newtown at those apartments, but that was a complete loss too. So, and there's no moisture in we were supposed to get some this week, but it looks like we're not going to, so.
Yeah, don't set fires and pray for rain.
So, all right, thank you, Chief Presnell. So, all right, Chief Dossinger, we'll move on to police. Oh. All right, I had 4:58. I thought he was going to squeeze it in 2 minutes, but we can go to the 5 o'clock. So we'll go to the 5 o'clock, and at our public hearing and public comments not on the agenda for 5 o'clock. Our first item up, we have an employee appreciation, and that will be handled by City Administrator Winningham.
Yeah, I apologize, Mr. President and Commission. I was trying to sneak in my employee appreciation, and I was trying to bypass Chief Dossinger. He has a lot more to say about body cams than I do about our employee appreciation. Do we have Bernie here tonight?
Right by the door.
There he is.
He's hiding over there. Wasn't hiding the other day, though, which is why we're bringing you forward. You may not be used to this, but people do watch out for you. So I'm going to present this, and then I'll talk. This is a certificate of recognition that acknowledges that solid waste operator Bernard Steckler earned this appreciation and recognition by exceptionally performing his duties as solid waste operator while driving his route in the city. Bernard exited his truck in extremely windy conditions, otherwise known as normal, but it was actually 50 plus mile-an-hour winds. And in these conditions recovered bins and debris from the roadway. This is above and beyond your normal duties, and it makes our city great. This brings great credit upon you, your teammates, and the city of Dickinson. So, given under my hand, I signed this. I just want to say thank you publicly. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
I do have a question. Can I ask a question though?
Sure.
Mr. Johnson? What happens if us people in our garbage trucks, we see somebody throwing a cigarette butt out their window? Is there something we can do? Because I mean, the other day, I was behind a couple of vehicles, and next thing you know, there goes the cigarette.
You can certainly report it as littering. You can, if you can gain access to or you see the license plate number, get that and call it into the police department and make a report.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Bernie.
All right, we'll continue on. Thank you very much, Mr. Winningham and Mr. Steckler. Item B has been removed, and we will go on to our public hearing for the Stable Estates. And this will be handled by Planning Director Hadley.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item would be first reading of ordinance 1711, and it's actually the first common acre lot in Stable Estate. It's 9.97 acres, and they're going from residential to agricultural in our future land use map. Was held at our last Planning Commission meeting. There was some discussion among the audience, but it was recommended for approval. And we are doing, these first three items are all going to be the first readings as public hearings, and then they'll come back to you as a second reading, and that'll come back with the final plat. And that'll be probably another couple months away. So there'll be a little bit of a disjointed time period by the time you hear it again. Staff would recommend approval. With that, if you have any questions on it, these are all tied together. It's the area outlined in white. This is the site.
For commissioners' reference, for the general public's reference, it's right off of States, South States, where the I'm going to call it the wrong thing, greenhouse is down on the corner on the river there. And it's basically just farmland now. It sits in between that and Palm Beach Road. So, right. And there was quite a bit of people that showed up at Planning and Zoning to discuss that. So I don't know if there's anybody in the audience this evening for the public hearing, but.
There were, yes, Mayor, there were a number of people there. They didn't have a problem with the future land use, the zone changes, and/or the plat, but it was some of the alignment of the plat for headlights and windows and that kind of thing. So some concerns that way, more of a design thing, and we're hoping to resolve most of those when they come through for the final plat.
So the flume that's up first, that would be ordinance
1711
on the
Yep.
flume. So are there any questions for Mr. Hadley or staff on ordinance 1711, which is the future land use map, better known as a flume? And if you pull that up, you can have a look at it. So if there are any questions? Mr. Frederick, any questions on the flume?
No questions.
Any questions, commissioners? Not, I'd look for a motion on ordinance 1711.
Let me see. It is a hearing, so,
That's,
sorry.
that's right. That is right. Thank you. So, I thought with Mr. Hadley there, we're just going to go right through this. I don't have to. All right, I'll open up the public hearing. If there are any questions, comments, concerns with the future land use map amendment from residential, going from ag to residential of this property. So this would be ordinance 1711. Please come forward, state your name, let us know your concerns. Right. If you wish to call in, please call area code 701-456-7006.
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music on hold when connected.
Anyone have any concerns? on ordinance 1711. Anyone? Seeing no one in the chambers has any concerns or questions, and no one online has any concerns, and then I would close the public hearing and look for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sobeluk,
Second.
second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next item up, Mr. Hadley, is the rezone.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the corresponding zone change for the item you just heard for the same exact legal description, going from R1 single family to agricultural for the 9.97 acre parcel. It would be also the first reading and a public hearing for 1712, excuse me, ordinance 1712.
Okay, this is ordinance 1712. This is a rezone to R1 from agricultural.
From R1 to ag, yep.
Yeah.
That's correct, sir.
No, it's going the opposite, isn't it? R1 to ag?
Yes,
Okay.
it's zoned R1 now.
Okay, well, it says on here, okay, yeah, R1 to ag. The next one's R1 to residential, I had highlighted. Any questions from commissioners? Hearing there are no questions or concerns, we'll go to the public hearing. If anyone in the audience wishes to state any concerns or has any comments on this rezone, please come forward, state your name. If you're watching, you can call into 701-456-7006. Anyone have any concerns? Comments, questions? Anyone? Seeing no one has any concerns over this rezone, I'd look for a motion on ordinance 1712.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sobeluk,
Second.
second by Commissioner Walla. Any further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Mr. Hadley, we have a rezone request from R1 to residential.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is a remaining on rezone for 42.33 acres for the rest of the subdivision. This would include the single-family lots, and it is going from R1 to RR, rural residential, excuse me, designation, so they can plat it into 1 acre lots.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any questions for Mr. Hadley or staff on ordinance 1713? Hearing no questions, I'll open the public hearing. If there's anyone from the public that has any concerns on this rezone from R1 to residential, ordinance 1713, please come forward, state your name, let us know your concerns. If you're watching online, you may call in 701-456-7006. Anyone have any concerns? Anyone? Seeing no one has any concerns or questions on this rezone, I'd look for a motion on ordinance 1713.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Oderman,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Sobeluk. Any further questions, commissioners, for staff? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on ordinance 1713. Mr. Oderman,
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk,
Aye.
Ms. Walla,
Aye.
Mr. Frederick,
Aye.
chair votes aye, motion carries. And we have a couple more, Mr. Hadley. We have a public hearing for the CTE site, Dickinson Public School.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This first reading of ordinance 1714, as you said, for the CTE site. Right now, it's a future land use amendment from commercial and industrial to public. And it's a 40-acre site. This map- The hub is just north of that, excuse me. Went through the public hearing process. There weren't any comments from the public on this. And staff would recommend approval of this future land use amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any questions for Mr. Hanley on this future land use amendment, ordinance 1714? Not, I'll open up the public hearing. If anyone from the public wishes to come forward, has any concerns, questions of this future land use, please state your name and let the commission know your concerns. If you're watching online, you can call in at 701-456-7006. Anyone have any concerns? Questions? Anyone? Seeing there is no one present that has any concerns or questions and no one online, close the public hearing. Commissioners, look for a motion on 1714.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Oderman,
Second.
second by Commissioner Walla. Are there any further questions for staff from the commission on the CTE site future land use map? Again, this is ordinance 1714.
I think we have the wrong attachment. Because it says stable estates in this one.
I think it got loaded twice.
Mm-hmm.
Should be item 9C.
But 9D1 is still the stable estates, and that should now be the school property.
Yeah, this is for 9.97 acres, what we have here. So I'm sure that's not the 40 acres we're talking about.
So if we haven't seen the actual document, how do we?
Mr. President, Commissioners, I do have it. It is drafted. It just indicates that the designated area will be transferred from GC General Commercial and GI General Industrial to public for lots 3, 4, and 5, Block 1, North Industries, First Edition, City of Dickinson, Stark County. That is the one that is drafted, so that is the one that is correct.
That's the ordinance we have, right, Christine?
Correct, yes, yep.
Okay.
I just tried to reload it and the same thing comes up. Do you have any apprehensions, commissioners, not seeing the actual document? You can
Well, I would imagine it's very similar to D2, correct?
It is.
Yeah. It's probably identical, just different.
Just what you
Correct.
wrote on the bottom is
Yes.
the only difference? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I would, if we haven't already motioned, I'd.
We do have a motion
Oh.
by Commissioner Oderman and a second by Commissioner Wallace, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. Sometimes I think we scroll through things so fast, we don't catch it until the very end. If there are no further questions or concerns, go ahead and vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Our next item up is a rezone from general commercial, limited industrial, industrial to public. Mr. Hadley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is a corresponding rezone application, and it would be the first reading of ordinance 1715, same site, 40-acre site, including lots 3, 4, and 5, Block 1, North Industries, First Edition. And I did provide a copy of the ordinances that we actually are operating off of up there, just so you have those.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hadley on this rezone? This is ordinance 1715. And this is taking property that is currently general commercial, limited industrial, and industrial to public.
That's correct.
If there are no questions, we'll open up the public hearing. If anybody from the public wishes to come forward, state your name, let us know your concerns on this rezone petition, ordinance 1715. Again, you can call, if you're watching online, 701-456-7006. Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public that wishes to state any concern or has questions on this rezone? Seeing no one from the public has any concerns or questions, I'll close the public hearing. I'd look for a motion on 1715.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Sobeluk to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Walla. Any further questions, Commission? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next item up is the public comments for items not on our agenda. If you have any concerns, something that is not listed on our agenda, please come forward, state your name, let us know your concerns. This is the time for the public to let us know what they are concerned about, items that may not be on the agenda this evening. So we also have the ability for those watching online to call in 701-456-7006. So if anyone has any concerns, please come forward, state your name, and let us know your concerns. Anyone? Does anyone have any concerns? Seeing no one from the public has any concerns that were not on our agenda, we'll close that section of our public hearings, and we will move back into the regular agenda. And Chief Dossinger, you have a police report, or actually, not a report, but a ask.
And ask. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the commission. The Dickinson Police Department has looked at the implementation of police body cameras for the department over the last couple of years and has researched the issue more intensely following the national political climate surrounding law enforcement profession that has developed. We feel that the time is now to move forward with this project. At this time, I want to just take a few minutes to inform the commission as far exactly what body cameras are. Body cameras are officer issued. They are activated by officers. It captures or approximate representation of what officers hears and sees, and they are a pre-event buffer. They are intended to document the scene, ensure proper officer conduct, procedures, and enhance public transparency. Just kind of touch on some of the pros and cons of police body cameras from a police perspective. Some of the pros, they assist in officer memory recollection. They place juries at the scene. They are known nationally to reduce officer complaints and use of force instances. There's a quicker determination of sustained and unfounded complaints and persuade suspect compliance. Some of the cons are there is a considerable startup cost, the initial training time and cost, policy and procedure drafting. We are currently at this time working on a draft of a policy and procedure for the body cameras. The ongoing storage cost, this has been much improved, and open records request and redaction requirements. There's also a heavy reliance expectation to have footage for prosecution. Yep.
Before you jump on to the next slide, this might be a question for later on, but how long do you typically have to keep the video footage for evidentiary purposes?
That is something that we are currently working on right now in our policy and procedures for the use of body cameras. And we have been communicating with Attorney Wanko on drafting a policy for that, and also our intersection related cameras for the storage of the footage.
So there's, to piggyback on his comment, there's no federal requirement or state requirement at this time?
No, I'm not aware of any, no.
Mr. President, Commissioners, it varies from state to state. There are, I believe, 16 states that have body cam, not body cam, surveillance intersection cameras, but the reality is that it is going to vary from state to state. So we don't have anything specific in North Dakota as of yet.
Yeah, thank you.
And there's nothing federal?
Approximately in the fall of 2020, we did form a body-worn camera committee within the department, formed of both lieutenants, sergeants, and patrol officers to basically try out 6 types of body cameras. We vetted 6 vendors for body cameras. We obtained cost estimates. We facilitated demos, and that committee made a final recommendation to me. The committee recommended the Axon Body 3 as a type of camera. It is an industry leader in the body camera world, and they are also manufacturer our Taser X 26Ps, the same company. Justification for the Axon, there's a flexible ownership terms. You can either pay yearly or a lump sum capital purchase for the body cameras. There is cloud storage, easy sharing with the state's attorney's office and the city prosecutor. And I guess I'd like to have City Attorney Wanko weigh in at this time on the benefits of body-worn cameras.
Thank you, Chief Dossinger. As the city prosecutor, I fully support Chief Dossinger's request for this expenditure. And unfortunately, law enforcement is becoming so technology-driven and advanced that we have to essentially go with the flow and get up to speed. Body cameras are becoming the norm in law enforcement. They're expected. And so I think it's time that we get up to speed and get this technology. And again, I fully support the chief's request for this because it is going to happen. And I think the sooner that we can get on board with this, get our officers trained, get the necessary infrastructure in place to deal with this, it's going to be much easier to transition into that process and learn along the way rather than have it thrust on us in the event that it officially does become required by law. So again, fully support the chief's request on this one.
One nice thing with the Axon body camera package is that they replace the cameras twice within a 5-year period. Obviously, there'd be some wear and tear on the equipment, and in that 5-year period, they would replace each camera twice. There are multiple mounting options as far as how an officer would wear it on his uniform or external vest. They have excellent customer service, and as far as userability, they were the best one that we found. Even a fireman can use it. They were nice to use with that. And they really came with some nice redaction tools as well, as far as when you have to go in for open records request and redact certain information out of there. It came with the software as well. Our computer-aided dispatching would be auto-tagged with the video taken, and there's also an option where you could, for live viewing, where you could actually view events as they are unfolding through the body cameras. Cost breakdown, there's 2 methods in which we could pay for it if the commission wishes to move forward with this. Basically, this would be a 5-year option. It would purchase 35 body cameras and licenses. There'd be 8 administrative licenses, 3 docking stations, and 1 terabyte of cloud storage. And I had kind of touched on the auto tagging for the computer-aided dispatching as well. A very good tech assurance plan, and this would be a 5-year contract. Option 2 would be more of a capital purchase, in which there would be a lump sum to pay for 5 years. And after that 5 years, we'd be looking at another lump sum purchase for that. But the state items listed in the yearly cost would be included in the capital purchase of that. So, Dickens Police Department would like to implement body cameras by August 1st of this year. I am requesting to utilize the asset forfeiture account that exists within the police department and the CARES COVID Law Enforcement Reversement Fund, which has a balance of a little over $3.1 million to pay for this project. At this time, the Dickinson Police Department is requesting the commission approval to move forward with the purchase.
Thank you, Chief Dossinger. Any questions for Chief or City Attorney Wenko?
Mr. President.
Okay, Mr. Sobolek, go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. So my questions are the 2 different cost estimates. They're exact same amount of money. What would, from a financial perspective from the city, what would be the benefits of paying it up front or paying it over the 5 years? Because when I added it up, I believe it was the exact same amount.
So from a city's perspective, if we intend to use CARES Act dollars from that funding, we'd be more inclined to pay for it outright with that money, because it's 1-year money. It is authorized for use, and we would have no issue auditing that to use this funding, as many other cities across the country have used their CARES Act for things such as body cameras.
And so then in 5 years, if we decide we like this program, we want to keep it, but we don't want to pay that lump sum up front, we could switch to yearly at that point in time if it's something that we're coming out of a different fund. It's not a big deal if we switch how we pay that. Because I'm assuming we'll still have to pay, because one option only goes 5 years and the other goes through 10.
So you would have to use if you amortize it over several years for maintenance and budget, it would be an annual budget requirement by the police department, and it would not be covered under CARES Act because of that money needs to be used. It has strings attached but for timeline, so we need to use that money sooner. So if your question is whether we would save any money, we potentially wouldn't unless the technology gets better, and we'd save money based on wanting newer cameras over the next 5 years.
Or going with somebody else.
Or going with another contract. That may lead to another question for Chief Dossinger. If any of your research indicated that how many years these cameras are in use once they're fully implemented?
Certainly. One nice thing about the Axon cameras, they figure that they basically have a life expectancy of about 2 years for on-duty use. And that's where they came up with replacement of basically the body cameras twice within a 5-year life cycle. But one nice thing about it is as technology improves and they make updates to their product, you would get the most updated camera that comes off their assembly line. And this would, Commissioner Sobolek, this would be a 5-year contract.
Okay.
So after year 5, you would have to look at a contract for the next 10 years. And then at that point in time, it would be negotiable if you wanted to go to a yearly contract or another contract for 5 years.
Okay, so thank you. That's exactly what I was asking, because if we don't have a big lump sum of money come in 5 years and we want to go over 5-year payments, or that is something that could be handled at that point in time?
That's correct. We would embark them on pursuing a yearly contract for the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Mr. Oderman, you had a question?
Yeah, Chief Dossinger, thanks for the presentation, first of all. But I guess the question is a follow-up on my previous question, because it says that there's 1 terabyte of cloud storage. If we're talking about HD video, that's not a lot.
We have been in communication with IT, Aaron Meyer, working on that, and there have been several discussions, and he is comfortable with that amount to start with. And one nice thing about the cloud is that he has certain, he's a wizard as far as storage and cloud storage, so that wasn't something that concerned us or him at that point in time.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Frederick, you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I think it's a good purchase and it's time that we implement it.
I don't have any questions, but my recommendation to the commissioners is we do the lump sum, pay it out of the CARES Act for this first 5-year. Unless somebody has an objection to that.
I'd make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to purchase the cameras lump sum using CARES Act funding by Commissioner Oderman, seconded by Commissioner Soboluk. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mrs. Soboluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Chief Dossinger?
Thank you.
We'll move into engineering. First item up is our sidewalk improvement district resolution, and that'll be handled by interim city engineer Marshak.
President Decker, Commissioners, before you is a resolution for our annual improvement district, which permits the city to institute a mechanism which allows citizens to make improvements to sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and driveways which are within our city right-of-way through a voluntary special assessment process, thus allowing citizens to make said improvements and have their costs assessed against the improved parcel. These assessments this year will be for a 5-year term at a 2.6% interest rate. The bid opening for this project is anticipated to be held April 28th of 2021, and the city engineering staff recommends approval of this district, which is Special Improvement District number 2021-02-1. Do you have any questions for me on this item?
Thank you, Mrs. Marshak. Any questions for Mrs. Marshak?
Mr. President,
Mr. Oderman?
this might be for Ms. Marshak, this might be for City Administrator Wenningham, but the interest rate that we charge on these projects, if the city is paying for these projects on the front end through a special and then assessing a special assessment to our citizens, what is the 2.5%? What does that pay for? Why are we charging interest to our citizens?
My understanding, Commissioner Oderman, was that it was helped to cover administrative type fees.
Okay.
We usually get that from the 10-year T-note and add 1.5% interest. And this year it was matched up with the same interest rate that we came up with for the 2021 mill and overlay.
Okay. And maybe this is just one of those deeper philosophical questions that I tend to ask, but I just, if the project is paid for, and I just, what are the administrative costs that are brought into a project like this if the, yeah, I mean, what are those administrative costs?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have the answer for you exactly, other than staff time and involvement on the project to help cover those staff expenses.
Okay. Commissioner Oderman, I'll follow up a little bit with interim city engineer Marshik's comments. The interest rate is set at the 2.5% because it just hovers on the Treasury bill. The interest rate can be negotiated with the city or the commission if that recommendation were brought forward. We haven't done that in the past because this is a 5-year term. If their interest rates were to climb, then I think it'd be under discussion. So it essentially gives us a low rate to be able to fund the administrative costs that are above and beyond what is normal city government. These special improvement districts go above and beyond what is a normal day-to-day operations. And so there is some limited complexity with how the staff must operate, even though we go out and have this bid by a company. And so it does reduce some of the city's costs because it does increase our hourly rate because we have to go and do all the investigative work on each one of the sidewalk proposals or each one of these phased proposals. So it is an addition to the normal city government workers' positions. But I couldn't tell you if there's a $1 for $1 cost between the extra work and the 2.5%. I would almost say that it would probably cost the city more than the 2.5%, but that is something we could do some work and provide that and give you a better picture of what that hourly rate would look like.
Because if we're lumping all like the engineering costs and stuff into that, then I think that's justifiable. But if that's over and above what we're talking about here with these administrative costs, I think our constituents would like a 1-to-1 if at all possible. Because I don't think this is a situation, especially maybe not necessarily in this situation, because this is a situation where citizens are allowed to approach the city and say, hey, can you assess my sidewalk? But in other situations where we're saying, hey, we're going to fix your sidewalk and we're going to specially assess you this amount of money over this term, and then you're going to pay interest. You know, if a constituent that has money that's available to them, that they can afford that, that's probably not anything that they're going to balk at. But you know, that 2% interest rate on somebody that doesn't have the money to necessarily pay to have their sidewalk fixed. I don't know. I'm concerned by the fact that we're charging interest on something that we're in some cases telling people, hey, we're going to do this, and if you don't have the money, tough. And that's not necessarily in this situation. I'm just asking the question because I think it's a question that we should have a firmer answer on.
Commissioner Oderman, it is a just question, and I think it's for us to bring you back some of the numbers. A portion of that 2.5% also covers the city's funding when that work is already completed. A citizen has up to essentially 18 months from the time the project is approved to completion to then pay for that. So it's not an immediate bill. Well, the bill may be immediate, but their ability to pay is extended. So some of that money we are fronting essentially. Mm-hmm. And I know we're talking philosophically, but we are providing the funding for the project from city and from money that we are essentially paying out first to the project. So we recoup some of that money that we've already given to the project. That's one way that we charge interest for that. Essentially giving a loan to do the project while the citizen pays the bill later. I do agree that there are some calculations that we need to do to make sure that it's more in line, and I think the public is due that they can see where that money is going. We are working towards something like that that gives them a better ability to access where that money is going, dollar to dollar, and I think that's something that is worthy as a project going forward, where they can pull up something on our website. We're not there yet, but it's something that we are looking at as staff, because we did have some contentious issues with the last special assessment, and we do agree that some of those are high, and some of those are 40 years in the making. So we are now getting to the point where we're having to correct some of those sidewalks, and so costs are higher because we have waited so long to get to these special assessments. Other municipalities throughout the state of North Dakota are doing this more aggressively, and they use special assessments on just about everything the city does. This commission, as you know, has been less aggressive with those things. And so this is the first one this will be the second one we've done, I think, over the last 5 years, in my recollection. So that's some of the logic that we're using. Doesn't always make sense in terms of funding, but I think it's better if we have more transparent answers so people can look at it and say, okay, I'm actually not paying too much for this assessment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the answer, and yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation.
The one question I would have, and maybe Commissioner Walla, you can refresh my memory, or Commissioner Frederick can, or staff, did we not talk about allowing them 10 years at one time? Last year's project? Right.
I seem to remember hearing that conversation.
Right, the 10-year, having the ability, instead of 5, 10, because of the
So I have a question one step previous to that. And so if you don't mind if I ask mine first and then we'll move to
Go.
Is this different than this special improvement district? Like I could call in and say, hey, I've got broken up sidewalks, can you come assess it and do this for me? Or is this just part of that district that we created? You know, we picked which district we're focusing on for sidewalks this year?
So this is separate. This is created throughout the whole community, and it's voluntary.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah,
why.
this is the voluntary one.
Okay.
So
But I
that's
was
why
just
this
wondering
one
if
is
we had.
5.
Okay. I was
And
just
then-
wondering if we had talked about this one possibly being 10 too.
I think we left this one at 5 because
Okay.
it's voluntary. The other project that we're going to talk about tonight too, because we have the bid, but that other project, because it's a district that we create and bring forward, and if it doesn't get protested out, you know, they're part of that district, that is the one that we upped to a 10-year span.
Okay.
So I think that's maybe where there's a little confusion on the length of that term.
I just couldn't remember if we had also talked about this one, but now that you do, you know.
See, if you're voluntarily coming forward to the city and saying, hey, can you fix my sidewalk? I don't have much of an issue with us charging them interest. It's when we come to them and say, hey, we're fixing your sidewalk.
But your question's better for the other.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I mean, so I guess I'll table my question until to that next one.
But you still want that information?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I was trying to hedge the question.
Yes.
So you wouldn't ask it again.
Well, and it is a very good question, so we will find out that information for you, Commissioner Oderman.
Okay, this is Resolution 10-2021, if I'm correct.
I believe
And
so.
there are no more questions on this item. I'd look for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Soboluk.
Move to approve.
Second by Commissioner Frederick.
I'm good.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Soboluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman? Aye. Chair votes aye, motion carries. Our next item up is the 2021 Mill and Overlay Project bid approval.
President Decker, Commissioners, this project, the bids for the 2021 mill and overlay, which is city project number 2021-01, were opened on March 30th of this year. The low bid was from Northern Improvement Company in the amount of $3,406,770.40. This amount is about 6% below the engineer's estimate. In addition to that, the letters that we sent out to those property owners were based on the engineer's estimate. So we anticipate some of these assessment values will come down. And we are working with our consultant to update those numbers. So as questions come in, we'll be able to update them on our estimated assessment amount moving forward. Those numbers, however, are not finalized until the project is complete. Engineering recommends approval of this bid with Northern Improvement Company. Do you have any questions for me on this item?
Are there any questions for Mrs. Marshak on the resolution 11-2021? I guess this isn't a resolution, this is just a bid, so. So, can you read me back that task order number you had, Mrs. Marshak?
This is city project number 2021-01.
Oh, that's what, project number. Okay. There, any further questions, comments?
I would move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Oderman,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Walla. Mrs. Binstock, you can move Mr. Oderman's question to this.
Please do.
Yeah. Reference it down to this.
The question from before about,
Right.
about the 10, or about the 5-year one, that small series,
Yeah.
that is in our code.
Okay.
The 5 years, and it's always 1.5% over the history. So that one
Okay.
we know about the special assessment.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Oderman, a second by Commissioner Walla. Any further questions or comments on this bid? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next item up is KLJ task order for 2021 mill and overlay. Mrs. Marshak?
Before you is an amendment number 2 to our task order with KLJ for the 2021 mill and overlay project. This amendment provides construction administration services for the project. The amendment spells out the services included under that construction administration, including on-site representation and creation of record drawings. This amendment is a not-to-exceed amount of $360,500. The city engineering staff recommends approval of KLJ's task order 2004-01117, amendment number 2. I believe I can help you with any questions you may have, and we also have representation from KLJ in the audience if you have questions for their staff.
Thank you, Mrs. Marshak. Any questions for Mrs. Marshak, city staff, or KLJ staff? Hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion on this task order.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sobeluk,
Second.
second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Our next item up is the South State Avenue bid approval. Mrs. Marshak?
Actually, President Decker, I believe that item was removed from the current agenda. On my agenda, the next item would be the South State Avenue resolution authorizing the drinking water SRF loan.
Okay. I still have it on mine, so.
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioners, I must have missed our removal, so I didn't add that to our agenda correction, so I'll make it now.
So is that being tabled to next meeting or May or?
Item D, South State Avenue bid approval.
Yeah,
Is
I had
removed.
asked Rita to remove it yesterday, and it doesn't show up on my agenda, so I apologize for not catching that at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, so, Mr. President and Commissioners, item D, South State Avenue bid approval. Recommend we delete that from the agenda, and if it has to come back before the commission, then we will just make that another agenda item in the future.
So to answer your question on that, I anticipate it to come back at our next meeting. We want to make sure that we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed with SRF and their approval of the apparent low bidder before we bring it to you for approval.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to the next item, which is the South State Avenue Resolution authorizing drinking water SRF loan. And this is a resolution.
Included in your packet is a group of documents provided by our bond counsel for the South State Avenue loan application, which includes a resolution authorizing the loan. This loan amount is $565,000. This includes a resolution 11-2021 for authorizing the drinking water SRF loan for the South State Avenue Water Main Project. City engineering staff recommends approval of this resolution. Do you have questions that I can help you with on this item?
Thank you, Mrs. Marshak. Are there any questions on this resolution, documentation that has been provided to us? And this would be resolution, I'm going to double check inside the documentation that it hasn't been numbered, but I think it should be 11-2021. Are there any questions?
Oh, sorry, President Decker, but in addition to that, just so everyone understands, it is noted in those documents that nothing's supposed to be dated because it doesn't initiate the loan until we make our first ask. So if that helps clarify those documents.
Okay, any other questions for Mrs. Marshak?
Mr. President,
Mr. Oderman?
would move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Oderman.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Sobeluk. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. And then, last item up, we have a report.
Yes, thank you, President Decker, Commissioners. Last item I have for you is just an update on the I-94 East Business Loop project. That was scheduled to begin today, so you'll start seeing more and more activity in the vicinity of the East Business Loop from 10th Avenue East out to exit 64. This work actually is two separate DOT projects. The business loop is one project, and then they also have work being done on the exit 64 itself, but they're coordinating that construction together. The off-ramp for westbound traffic exiting I-94 is also under construction as part of that project. Staff is working with the DOT and their team to coordinate activities, including movement of oversized loads and continuing access to businesses located in that vicinity. And that team is having weekly meetings and bi-weekly meetings to keep everyone on the same page and hopefully mitigate any issues and confusion. And the anticipated completion date is November 6th of this year.
Thank you, Mrs. Marshak. Any questions? No, I've had a few calls, excited
Mr.
about it.
President,
Mr. Frederick, go ahead.
Loretta, could you give us an update on the Galar project too? When that's going to be completed?
So Commissioner Frederick, my understanding is that they won't be restarting that until they get all the lighting poles in. You know, that's kind of what the holdup was last fall. So once those poles all arrive on site, then they will start moving forward with construction again. But I have not heard an anticipated date for those.
No, like I was stating earlier, I've received a few calls excited about a roundabout, and I had to explain to them there will be no roundabout.
That is correct.
So I think if the city could somehow like post some updates on our website and our Facebook page on how the project's going, just so people can.
That is our intention.
Okay.
We've just had our first kickoff meetings to get everybody together and coordinated. And so as new information comes along, we'll be sharing that on our website and our Facebook page.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the East Business Loop project? Now we'll move into Public Works. We have a, first item up is a hazardous tree removal district resolution. Mr. Zuroff?
Yes, thank you, President Decker and Commission. Good evening. This resolution is an annual resolution that we do. It's for voluntary assessment if homeowners would like to have their hazardous tree removed on private property. So that, again, the citizens would have to come to the city and request to be assessed. If they want to assess it through, I believe it's 5 years, 5-year payment for any hazardous tree on private property. Do you have any questions? I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Zuroff on the hazardous tree removal district resolution? This should be 11-2021. 12? 12, okay. Oh, yep. 12. SRS was 11. 12-2021.
Mr. Zuroff, is a tree deemed hazardous when it has a disease, or because it's located and it grows to a certain size and it creates a hazard in that way, or how is a tree deemed hazardous?
I think originally this was designed for the Dutch elm disease tree and for, possibly either dying in Dutch elm disease that could be hazardous for maybe adjoining properties and or the public. And so if the forester determines a tree that needs to be removed or is hazardous, whether it's on private property or public right-of-way, that's in our ordinance as part of the forester capabilities. So this gives, if the forester sees that it's diseased, it gives them the opportunity to put it on tax. So most of it's diseased, I think, was the intent. Every now and then we have had instances where an older tree has been kind of with multiple properties and the big windstorms came, and that tree is on a property that either the bank owns or somebody else, and we want to get it removed. So we take care of it that way too.
Thank you.
And also, if we have anything on our right-of-way or our property and it's encroaching, hanging into somebody's property, they can notify the forester and have that dealt with.
Sure can. Anytime you have any questions about trees that are in our right-of-way, please contact Public Works Department. and of course, we can look at it, and if it needs to, if you see an issue or something that needs to be removed, please let us know and we'll take care of it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zuroff. Any other questions on the hazardous tree removal district? Not, I'd look for a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 12, 2021.
We have a motion by Commissioner Walla to approve 12-2021.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Sobeluk. Any further questions or comments from Mr. Zuroff or city staff? Hearing none, we'll vote. Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Next item up, we have easements for landfill leachate project.
Yes, President Decker, Commission. Before you are multiple easements for the force main. The force main will start at the landfill site and follow Lehigh Road north, and then go east, or excuse me, go west towards our water reclamation facility. This is an upsize of our current force main. There are multiple easements in your packet. I guess if you have a lot of questions, I would refer to Christina Wanko as she has reviewed all of the easements. They do also say the compensation that we're giving each property owner. I believe we have them all signed to date. So I guess if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. I don't know, Ms. Wanko, do we need to approve each one, or can we approve all at the same time?
Mr. Zuroff, I'd be fine with the commission approving them as a packet and as a whole.
Thank you, because I was going to ask that question.
Are there any other questions for the easements for the landfill project? There are no questions or comments. I'd look for a motion on these easements.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sobeluk.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Mr. Zuroff, you have a couple of generator maintenance agreements.
Yes, thank you, President Decker, Commission. For you are two agreements. Basically, the first agreement is for our major generators. The second is for some of our smaller generators on our lift stations. I believe the total is 31 generators that we need to have annual service done. Also, we've included 2-hour load banking that we want to get started on once every 3 years for all the generators, and then annually for the generators at the Public Safety Center. We have gotten quotes from multiple industrial generator services. TWE out of Billings had done a lot of our services. They lost their maintenance person here, so their costs have gone up, and they didn't submit a quote. We got a local quote from Butler. Their quote was additional $40,000 from what you see for you. So our recommendation is to staff's recommendation is to approve the agreement between Cummings for it's a 3-year contract for a total of $100,522.45. That is a 3-year. We wanted to do a 3-year to extend get the best price we could, and I think we've done that. Dave Clem, our operations manager, work with this, and the amount of lift stations and facilities we have with generators has increased considerably, and some of these generators are fairly large, and we need the industrial service and maintenance done. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Zuroff or Mr. Clem?
Mr. President.
Mr. Oderman?
Gary, how often are we replacing our generators? Do we have them on like a replacement schedule? Because I know this is for maintenance, but.
You know, we don't. A lot of these generators, I bet, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've increased, you know, almost twice generators. So we're still on the generators being new. So that'll be something we'll need to look at. Some of the older generators that we had in the lift station basically got replaced when we redid the lift station. So it became part of the project.
Sure. Yeah.
I think, for example, for the Public Safety Center, I would guess once they're, you know, they do late load bank testing, if we find any problems there, that we'd have to look at, you know, replacing. We can sure look to see what the recommended replacement is for some of these generators. The one at the plant, I think, is a 1 megabyte generator, so it's fairly large. I'd hate to have to replace that, especially if we can do, you know, annual maintenance and extend the life of the line.
It would be nice to have some kind of ballpark on what the average lifespan is, expected lifespan, just so we've got, you know, because things will break down eventually to where it's not going to be cost effective to actually maintain it anymore. So
I think that's good. We do have these as units or in our fleet software, so we'll work on a replacement plant generators.
Thank you.
And Mr. Zuroff, how many of these are backups, or are these primaries?
I guess they're mostly all, you know, like for the lift stations, they're a backup generator that we test.
Okay.
They just have the one
So
generator.
they're all backup?
Yes.
All right.
I have just a terminology question. When you say you're talking about load bank testing, we're testing like if the battery life essentially in this generator, how much you can get out of it, the output out of it, or what? I'm not understanding what load banking here.
You know, I'm not 100% familiar with, but to me, a load bank, you put that load on the generator. So you can start a generator and test it. It's just like an engine. So you start it, but once you put a load on it, how it creates electricity and takes that load, you know, that's the real test of a generator, is when you put the load on it. In other words, when you try to acquire as much power out of that generator as you can. I don't know if you know, even with your small generators, you can run it, and then you turn something on, you can hear it trying to kick in and reach that electrical capacity, I guess, for that. I don't know if that was a very good explanation or not, but.
Yeah, in short, and also what the load banking does is test the lines and the connection.
Mr. Clem, why don't you come up here?
And he's right, good, all the lines within it too. So it would be like on an actual event, as a load.
So also what the load bank test does is all the connections that are coming from the generator into the building to make sure that the load capacity meets over 30% of what the manufacturer, whether it's a 250 megaton generator or 1 kilowatt, 20 kilowatt. So what it does is test the lines to make sure that they meet the standard. And it's 36 months for every generator that we have in the city, with the exception of Public Works. It's done yearly due to the fact of dispatch and what they're used for if the main power goes down.
It's really like a real event, test it for a real event.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Zuroff or Mr. Clem? Now I look for a motion on this generator maintenance agreement.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, by Commissioner Sobeluk. Second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mrs. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Our next item up is our mausoleum presentation, and this will be presented by GT Architects.
Yes, President Decker, Commissioner White, they get ready and grab the control here. The mausoleum has been nearing capacity. The demand for niches and crypts have been increasing considerably versus regular cemetery burial. We tasked GT Architecture for the mausoleum master planning. They'll be doing a presentation tonight. We're looking for direct input on how we would like to move forward. We're looking at moving forward with final design and construction in 2022. So, leave it there.
Maybe on.
Good evening, President Decker and Commissioners. I am Brian Gregoire with GT Architecture.
I'm Alec Johnson with GT Architecture.
Let's see. I believe you have a packet of, and then in addition to the PowerPoint slides here. The PowerPoint are really just the graphics where the packet has greater detail of the project here for us. Like Mr. Zeroff stated, we were hired to look into the master plan and review the mausoleum and the site. The mausoleum is east of town. You know, it was built in the mid-90s in 2 phases, and it currently has around 432 crypts and niches. For terminology, the crypt is where the casket, and the niche is the urn. The mausoleum has interior and exterior spaces. All of the niches are on the outside, where the crypts are interior and the exterior. Yes, before you can see the image to the left. Just it's around 4 acres. The trail is on the east side, and there's a few pine trees that divide the site north and south, where the mausoleum is on the south side with the parking lot on the west. So there is lots of room for future here. The couple pictures on the right are just the interior, and then one from the exterior. Here is just a survey of the site. We wanted to understand a little bit if there were easements, what exactly the terrain was, if there's water, sewer, things like that, just to get a legal description and verify the site boundaries and property dimensions. Here's a diagram of the existing mausoleum. You'll see that there are, the crypts are situated that there are doubles and singles. The doubles are actually 2 deep, the singles just being by themselves.
You'll notice in this layout too, there are currently no maintenance rooms of any kind, and there are no interior niches that would house urns. A couple things to point out as we go forward with the new proposed design.
Here, in talking with staff, a couple funeral homes, some of the ideas were to mirror the existing mausoleum. So here the existing is on the right side, the new one it would be on the, or proposed to be on the left or the north side there. You can see down the center, there's some columbariums. That is for the niches. Those would be additional spaces as well. parking, we'd be looking to propose an additional parking lot on the east side to give greater access for when there is a funeral, and then also to help people that want to visit during inclement weather. The parking lot right now is on the current one is on the west. People like to drive there, but if it's windy, cold, rainy, they don't want to get out and walk up there, especially for when their loved one is on the exterior, not the interior. The parking lot on the east side will also allow people to stay in their vehicles and have that few minutes of remembrance without actually having to get out of their vehicle. In addition to where the parking lot would be, it has direct access to the recent trail connecting things, so it could serve as a trailhead as well for the community. Here's just another rendering of a little closer, trying to match that of the existing mausoleum materials. In our research, we actually discovered who built and supplied the granite for the existing one. And so we've been in talks with them. They're still in business in Minnesota, and they operate around a dozen or so different granite quarries. So they've also helped us in planning the proposed one here for us. So matching granite, being it's a natural material, we can get fairly close, but there still be the variations within it. Here's just the new mausoleum added onto the survey to help understand how the parking lot and the new mausoleum would sit within the existing.
There's no relocation of the power there?
We do need to look into that. There is an easement for an electrical line, and that would have to be researched more as to what that would entail. But yeah, the power does bisect the site, but it's just...
There are dollars allocated for that in the preliminary cost estimate that is put together later on in this as well.
That's the next one. This here diagram is of the proposed mausoleum. Overall, it's the same exact footprint. Couple key differences are fewer crypts, more niche spaces, plus the addition of a janitor and a storage room. The current one does not have a janitorial room, so anything that's stored out there, shovels, ice melt, just maintenance supplies are just sitting off in the inside, or when staff comes up to do any maintenance, they have to haul buckets of water up there, where here we would allow for that within the janitor site, and also to keep the electrical cabinet and everything out of view. With this plan here, niches would be on the inside as well, the two little alcoves, in addition to that of the crypts. Also, niches would be on the south side of the building as well here.
And what we found out is that basically the demand for the niche or the urn space is becoming greater as we go along, and right now I think in Dickinson it's about 40% of people are choosing the cremation route. And so where originally when the first mausoleum was put together there wasn't that great of a need for the niches, the niche space is becoming basically the more sought after space. And so putting some of that niche space on the inside really sort of helps to you know, add to that need. So, and really what's coming, how this is really all stemming is basically because right now we're sitting with about 9 niche spots that are still available at the existing mausoleum. There are about approximately 18 crypt spaces that are there. So, I mean, it's really filling up quickly as people's mindsets kind of change, and sooner or later we need this here so that we have a place for our future. And that's going to be coming up here pretty quick, and so that is how this all came together.
Next slide. This slide here is just an example of what one of those columbariums down the center could look like. There's variations in the overall size and height for these as well. But this would be the same granite and everything that is the mausoleum. The same supplier is able to produce that. This one here shows some doubles and niches. There's different configurations with that. A double being, 2 urns can be placed within one. Currently, right now, the mausoleum only has singles. But families are utilizing them as a double. It's tight, but it is able to work. But some additional planning has to be done.
I'll probably just go back to the slide. Show us the overall. Here's the rest of the slide. And then I guess really what we've done here too is we've put together a preliminary cost estimate, and that happened by reaching out to the provider of the mausoleums and as well as the freestanding columbariums. We worked with local contractors here to get some pricing on that as well. Another thing, the way that the mausoleum currently works is that basically that first one, there was a certain price for each space that you would buy. So when the entire thing is filled up, basically the city is just wanting to recoup its dollars. And so that's what we're planning to do here as well. The price per space, whether it's niche or whether it's a casket space, what we're finding in our research and in reaching out to the funeral homes here, into cemeteries and mausoleums in Bismarck and Mandan, is that we're significantly lower in all of our costs here, 2 to 3 times lower than pretty much anywhere in the general area. And so the thought being that if you looked at a modest price increase here, that basically you would be able to recoup the dollars that would be required to do the addition.
Some of the information in your packet is direct conversations from Ladberry and Stevenson's and comparison that of a traditional burial versus a cremation or being interned at the mausoleum here. So that's discussions for those. Also within the packet, there's the literature or brochures from the cemeteries and mausoleum in Bismarck Mandans. That's been available for that. Also within your packet, there's some spreadsheets showing different price increments for what Alec had mentioned about the cost of the niches and the crypts. What people prefer is kind of the middle section. Those are the most preferred, so those have generally been the most expensive currently priced, and then what we've found at within Bismarck Mandan, where the lower and the upper ones are not as expensive as the middle ones, and the interior ones are the most sought after, being the most expensive.
President Decker, if I may.
Mr. Zero.
Thank you, gentlemen. I guess I would like to just, ask the commissioner if they have any questions. In public works, you do a lot of things. This is my first mausoleum I've been involved in, so there's, but it is interesting, especially now with the niches and mausoleums. Now that we've worked on this, I've noticed in different areas there's niche parks. There's different columbariums, or there's a variety out there, and I think what we have here looks really good, but there's a lot of variety we could do, and so we're kind of looking for input If this is the direction you'd like to go, we have estimates on what we have here. If you have any questions, I think we could, depending on what we come up with, I think we could work through and discuss with you what we want to charge on the end, you know, what these costs will be, depending on how it ends up construction and the bidding comes in to recoup our dollars. But I would really ask any input or questions that you guys would like to see, or if you think we're going in the right direction.
When you Google mausoleum, you get a lot of the Louisiana. Or if you crypts, you'll get the ancient Rome. Those finding local ones was a little bit of a challenge at first, because most mausoleum projects are all church orientated, not public works. Most churches own them and they've commissioned them, and they own the cemeteries. We're a little different, where the city owns all the cemeteries and the mausoleums. So it's truly non-denominational. Even from talking with the funeral homes, there's not one denomination that's using it more than the other. It's just, for whatever reason, people want to be a little more green in terms of their final remains. They don't have an affiliation with a church where they have associated the cemeteries with certain churches. They have a variety of reasons for wanting to be at the mausoleum in lieu of your traditional cemetery.
Mr. President, Commissioners, I'll just make a couple observations. First, the master plan, I thought it's great work by Mr. Zuroff and GT Architecture, just in getting the amount of data, the amount of exploration. It wasn't just one-off, it was several places they looked and got us a good idea of what other cities are struggling with. What was interesting was the increase that we saw from that presentation before was in cremations, that people are tending to move towards that. And I think primarily that seems like it's from the pandemic. And I don't know if that's going to be the future as far as how people would like to memorialize their loved ones. I'd say we're on a good start with the master plan, and then always can be phased in when you look at mausoleum versus the niches and columbariums. For that place, it's definitely a good place to pursue how we would master plan that, how we would increase the size of another mausoleum, in addition to the park space that we create. Not that it's always a enjoyable place to have a park setting, but in this case, as respect to families, we would kind of seek the demand of what citizens really want. If that increases our plot, as we look in our maintenance funds for the cemeteries that we now take responsibility for. That's all I would add.
Go ahead, Mr. Owen.
I would just like to say that I really like the concept of mirroring and making it look aesthetically the same as the existing mausoleum. I think there's a nice symmetry there that lends itself to, especially those people that, buried loved ones in the old mausoleum, to have something that's similar right across that mirrors. The only concern I had, I like the parking lot, but because I'm a symmetry guy, putting that parking lot there, if you do eventually plan to put a third or fourth mausoleum on that site, does that parking lot possibly limit your ability to do that?
I think with the way the site's laid out, when you look at the 14th Street East line there, that is the high point, and you gradually slope down to the north. And with the trees dividing, you could look at adding another mausoleum or parking lot north of the trees. For how long it took or is taking to fill this one up, it's difficult to gauge the demand or how quickly, everything will be purchased here.
Into the future use, I know, we had talked a couple years ago, Mr. Zuroff and I and Mrs. Carlson, about, we have the south side cemetery across from St. Joe's. There's also room
Yeah, sure.
to the
Yep.
east, and I had been approached by some veterans groups to possibly make that additional space into a veterans type cemetery. We don't have anything in.
Sure.
So I guess what I would like to see is, I know this is more of a report tonight, and they're gonna flush out some numbers for us. I need to get back to those groups and see if there's still a component there that would wish to pursue that, because they did a really good job fundraising on the Veterans Pavilion and the Veterans Memorial up there, and if we can maybe get some cost share, some things, if we're spending money to ship granite from Minnesota to match, maybe there's a mausoleum out there also that we could add to this project. But we'll have to go forward, and that's up to you commissioners too, if we want to pursue that, finish that cemetery out there. Because there's some work out there. We basically, I don't know if you've been out to St. Joe Cemetery or the other cemetery on the east side of the road, there's no roads. You basically drive off the road into a wheat field.
Well, and I think
At one point, we got to build some roads.
I think Mr. Fisher presented on that this last summer.
Well,
Talked about that.
we have water out there, and that was the discussion if we were going to continue to water it or not, so I guess that's something to think about when budget rolls around, if we want to make some plans out there also. And then Mr. Fisher can kind of analyze too what additional cost that might be to expand that library, and Mr. Zuroff, some additional costs there. But like I said, I have to do my part too and get back to these veterans groups and see how much interest there still is. Because there literally is, nothing out here that's dedicated to the veterans. And I had even proposed that we make it like a service cemetery. It's not just necessarily veterans, but law enforcement, the first responders, kind of dedicate it that way. Yeah.
President Decker, I would like to, continue move forward with
Right.
ET this year for design. It is, I guess, for 2022 construction. So I would like to start moving through design, or at least pass them with the second phase of design, to be able to bring that to the commission. And to answer your question too, Commissioner Oderman, I think there's even room to the west for even
Yeah.
nearing the
Yep.
two.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could have four
Yep.
there actually.
Right.
too.
Yep.
One thing to consider as well, if a second mausoleum is built, the additional columbariums down the middle, what additional cemetery space is opening up and when within the city? I know that there's been discussions of that. People keep, from our talks with the funeral homes, people are calling them, asking them, because people do want to pre-plan. They're asking for, when is there going to be more indoor space?
It's a
What
question.
would a third mausoleum look like? Would we go 80% niches, 20% crypts? That's a challenging question at the moment, because right now it's almost a 50-50 for things, and how quickly would this second one fill up? So what would that third one look like is,
And it's taken 25 years about to get this one to fill, but the mindset of people is also changing too. I would foresee that, well, this one is a little bit larger in spaces, not overall footprint, but I would think somewhere around that same area, that same time frame, especially with those added columbariums too that provide additional space.
Mr. Zuroff, so like I said, there's nothing really on here for us to approve, but but you're gonna have something maybe next meeting, so you can jump into the design phase for us
Yeah,
to
I
look at?
think we'll get to,
Okay.
task GT to start design, and if this direction looks good, I would like to pursue it, and I guess if you're, fine with what we have as probable costs and direction as far as the building and the columbariums, we'll go that direction. And I want, input, and if you hear anything, let us know.
Anyone opposed to Mr. Zaroff moving forward and bringing this to us for design approval?
Mr. Fisher has something?
Yeah, Mr. President, just a couple things. I ran the numbers today, and there's 144 niche spaces for cremations originally. 135 are used, we have 9 left. And then 288 full spots for burials, 247 are used, we have 41 left. Like I said, the cremations is becoming a big thing. I met with Stevenson's last week, and, they're asking, because if we don't do something soon, they're going to build their own cremation wall type thing by in front of theirs, if they can get something like that to fly. So I think we really need to start moving forward. It really took off in the last 5 to 7 years. It was pretty slow to start with, and now things are really starting to fill up, and this is becoming more and more popular. It was kind of frowned upon right away by some religions, but it's really, people aren't even considering that anymore. And
Having all those stats at hand, I would ask this question of you. How many grave spots do we have in our actual cemeteries available?
well, I didn't run since the last time.
Okay.
But even on that, we're getting pretty full. I mean,
Right.
for example, one person today bought 8. So, I mean, that's starting to take a... But the thing with that is, there's none left on the inside. The west building is completely full except for one single and one double. So it's that east side where they want to add that parking lot, because it would just create that. And meeting with them and talking about the prices, we are so cheap right now, it's actually more feasible to do this than it is to do a regular burial by a long shot. So when we do price them, they want us to make sure that we get where we need to be. We should have been raising these all along, we just never did. So it's the original prices that we set on them back in 1995.
If we get this started, we can work with you, Commissioner, and look at, we have talked a lot about expanding the cemetery down there, so I think that's something we need to have more meetings about and a discussion about how we move forward.
Okay, well, I think we'll all be looking forward to something soon. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, planning, code enforcement, nothing. Down to, I think I've covered everything. Just item 10, commission. Any items commissioners want to bring forward that wasn't on the agenda this evening? Anything? Mr. Frederick?
No, nothing.
All right, nothing? I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.